Let's see. Is that better? Hello, 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 everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully I fixed the sound issue. I didn't even realize I was muted on the master side because I never muted there. No sound, 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 no sound. That's what I get for talking. Let's talk about the death of the American dollar, the death of the American dream. As we've been seeing warnings about this, for some time now, we're actually seeing it happen. As the dollar is only valuable in global currency due to oil, because petrol has been exchanged on the U.S. dollar for a long time. Now we're seeing that slip. The death of the dollar is here. As we're facing this announcement, this is true. This is happening. Saudi Arabia is now accepting all currencies, including euro, ruble, and the yen for oil, meaning there is no longer a chance that the U.S. dollar will become or stay dominant. Another big warning that's coming to American system is facing the existential crisis of what happens once we lose the position of being the most powerful empire in the world. When our dollar is no longer the global currency, we lose that ability. A lot of people are talking about moving and diversifying funds. Even if you're buying gold and other currency, at least you have a somewhat stability. George Soros, of course, moved money into the British pound. A lot of his money is now in the British pound. Oh my goodness. Heating oil just going up. Everything's going to go up here in a couple months. And it is going to be drastic. The U.S. dollar will lose its place in the world currency reserve. And most people believe that this will be a result of massive money printing being done by the U.S. and Federal Reserve in response to the pandemic. This was the original basis for this. And it happened. This was a serious warning. The dollar status as the world reserve is one of the most key pillars of American monarchy. Generally, about the U.S. decline, in one interview, a lot of people are describing how American capitalism has morphed into a castle-based system, defined by severe cronyism and easily political motivated money printing, which has happened. By doing so, of course, the long list of Wall Street insiders are airing their premises at the state of the U.S. This is a big problem. Warren Buffett to Ray Dalio have warned about the bifurcation of the U.S. American class system, which has left millions unable to climb the economic ladder. With the American dream going down the drain as the American currency does as well, this is not good for anybody. The U.S. dollar plays an important role in architecture of America's power. Being in, of course, Ukraine has hurt us a lot, but the sanctions on Russia and Russia moving to take only rubles as their currency for oil has shifted Syria's and Saudi Arabia's concerns on what they're going to take for oil, opening the global market up for no longer being a petrodollar. Yeah, Americans now bashing other countries' presidents that won by a landslide. It's ridiculous. But as we're facing this global isolation that we're going to be facing, of when the American dollar declines, the U.S. has no way of securing its dollar by gold. And that was one of the big things that we started with. Emergence and powerful economic and global banking vaults in one place made the price of a dollar the world's most important currency in the years to follow the war. We no longer have a gold-backed currency here in the United States. So, of course, after Nixon's shock of the 1970s, in which the dollar was removed from the oil standard, Washington came to the agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi that the oil trade would be done in U.S. dollars, the so-called petrodollar system. Since the oil's is the lifeblood of the global economy, this has continued the hunger for the dollar from the rest of the globe, meaning American currency was stable. The system allowed unparalleled levels of deficit spending, which then the U.S. fed the U.S. vast military industrial complex and domestic social programs, and which in turn are used to prevent internal deprivation from the dollar standard and by compliance from the American public. Several wars that the U.S. has fought, such as Iraq and Libya, have been motivated in by part the desire to prevent dissident states from departing from the system. This is something that's going to affect us all. Of course, now that the U.S. dollar is backed by men with guns and the power of the U.S. military, that was the fact back then, alongside with hard power, and the dollar allowed Washington to wield heavy threats of sanctions against other governments. These have been enforced with deadly effect to the world over, for the instance of Iran to halt Tehran's project of enriching uranium. The benefits have been referred to as American exorbitant privileges, which Washington is not shy to exploit. Americans' recognition of the advantage she gained from the status quo, so do her enemies. The world is splitting with two rough camps, the quote, allies of the U.S. and her NATO allies versus the emergence of the revision axis comprised of China, Russia, Iran, and several dissident states. With, of course, Saudi Arabia moving off the petrodollar, this is huge because America will no longer be there. Oh my gosh, Billy, yeah, I'll get into that in a minute, but this is big. This oil is big. When we banned Russia from the SWIFT international banking system and the banking network, they demanded their oil be paid back in rubles. And Moscow and Beijing have proposed a payment system, a common cryptocurrency like BRICS nation, and an alternative to SWIFT called CLIPS system. Both states are aggressively buying up the world's limited supply of gold. And nobody's paying attention to this. Russia and China, because Russia is only accepting rubles right now for their oil, they're requiring people to buy rubles with gold currency in order to get the rubles. China's doing the same thing. They are buying up massive amounts of gold. And they're going to have a gold-backed currency. Once they go to a gold-backed currency standard, we're done. We're done. Our currency will mean nothing. And that's the reason we see Saudi Arabia, of course, backing off from the petrodollar standard, which we have long held to be our number one privilege of being the, of course, baron of the world. The introduction of a gold and sovereign oil-backed currency would rival the U.S. without question. Even if the petrodollar still existed, without the petrodollar, it would mean the American's dollar would be equal to basically the UK, United Kingdom, which would be drastic, a drastic change. Yeah, Russian troops have been hammering everything. I know that was going on there. A lot of stuff, of course, with Russia to deal with Russian inflation, rate hikes, COVID, and a full headwinds, but the markets are ready, or are they? As the seesaw of the first quarter of 2022 came to bitter end this week, with major stock indexes suffering the worst performance in 2 years. Surging inflation, Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the speed up of the Federal Reserve's rate increase plan has created a series of unique challenges, which is leading to a volatile 50% higher than the same period in 2021. There's no shortage of headwinds going on into the second quarter, many extended from the previous quarter, but at this time, analysts don't have time to digest them or strategize. The markets are going to crash. Geopolitical unrest, such as Russia's invasion into Ukraine, has stunned markets across the globe, has ripple effects to the energy market, commodities, and even food and securities issues. As we're seeing, Russia's strategy in Ukraine as shifts after setbacks and a lengthy war looms. Russia is now not playing around. They are dropping bombs and taking names. Yeah. The problem is, Billy, they don't want to admit if the Russian troops were there or not. They don't want to admit the truth. No, truth sets some people free. Well, the truth does not set them free. The truth does not set them free, unfortunately. It is sad. It is sad what's happening in America. It is sad what's happening in Russia. We're seeing, or Ukraine, we're seeing massive amounts of deaths because Russia is no longer playing around. And I understand why. Russia's been told so far that they're weak and this and that and every other thing that could be said about them has been said. As a foreign government and an enemy of the United States, obviously at this point, Biden has repeatedly called out, saying that he shouldn't be there. Yeah, or 19 million to give to Russia for aid. Yeah, so much. So much propaganda. The US dollar is the biggest thing that nobody's paying attention to, though. This petrodollar deal will be the beginning or the end. If we lose the petrodollar, if the US dollar is not the only currency the oil is traded in, our currency will become worthless very quickly. We do not have a gold backed currency. We are a nation that overspends. We borrow way too much. We want to blow all money, any money we can at any other obstacle we can. It's just sad. Yeah, Pelosi. Pulaski's going out. She's leaving for MSNBC. And I can't wait till she does. She's just another idiot out there in the turmoil of idiots that we're trying to watch. But historically high gas prices continue downward trend. But how long is it going to last? The downward trend is only going to a million barrels a day. It's not much, and releasing about 180 million barrels total. Literally trying to keep oil prices remaining under $100 a barrel, and hoping there's no escalations in the war, Russia's war on Ukraine. But as we're seeing, Russia is increasing its escalations on Ukraine, taking more aggressive stances, as of course our president eggs them on by saying stupid things like, oh, Russia can't do anything and Putin should be taken out of office. Well, first of all, those are political statements. You cannot make those statements as a president without having political effects or side effects. That's the end of it. There's no question about that. Zelensky is a dictator. If you have a question about that now, you should really be looking into the Azov group. Zelensky is a dictator. Whether we want to admit it or not, he is. We are funding a dictatorship because he's arresting anybody that's against his party. There's no other political party available in Ukraine because they're in jail. We're looking at a huge problem here in the U.S. as prices, of course, increase. Inflation is going to go out of control. Housing market's going to pop. People can't end up paying their mortgages at this rate, especially when next month they'll go to from 4.8% as the minimum mortgage rate to up to 6.8% as the minimum mortgage rate. These are going to be drastic changes in America. People don't realize unless they have a mortgage and then they're on variable rate. Those percentages are huge because that's what your monthly payments are based off of. Barely any goes to principal when you pay a monthly mortgage payment. And when your rates go up that big, you face hard times. It could be the difference between a $600 a month payment to a $900 a month payment. $2,000 a month payment to a $4,000 a month payment. Credit cards going up, everything. People can't afford food as it is in America as we see food lines getting bigger. Middle East oil exports are cashing in as the Ukraine war hits global economy. They're not producing more oil; they're producing less, and we're dumping our oil out of our reserves right now, which makes no sense. I know high gas prices are a bear for everybody, but you do not use the strategic reserves. You do not use the strategic reserves and keep burning them up at every point because that is not efficient. These are things we're facing now. The strategic reserves are being used up. Middle East, of course, is producing less oil than they were producing because we're releasing oil from the strategic reserves because they want to keep the prices high to keep cashing in. So when we have no more oil left, what do? When we have nothing left in the strategic reserve and they want to raise oil prices, they can just restrict more and more and more until we're basically begging to survive. It's that. Of course, people are still waiting on tax returns. I filed them at the beginning of this whole freaking tax season. Still going on to March or April 4th today, and still don't have a word of where their tax returns are. Showing pending statuses and everything else. This is getting ridiculous. Of course, the EU, which is I don't know how they're in it. They say they're gonna stand against Russia's gas payment demands, but they require the natural gas. They're gonna get the natural gas one way or another, which is what they're saying. But they're gonna stand against Russia's natural gas payment system demands, which means paid in rubles in order to get paid. They're not going to do it. They're not going to pay in rubles. So how do they plan on getting natural gas or oil? Everything's going crazy from Wall Street being upside down. Everybody now is feeling the shift happening in the economy as people freak out over inflation and possible recession at this point. A recession is not out of the question at this point, as inflation is taking over. Oh, it's just driving me crazy. The stuff we're facing here in America and the stuff we're facing around the world, the shift is happening. American people are starting to wake up now. Not just Republicans, not Democrats, but everybody. People are starting to wake up and say, hey, there's a problem. I go to the grocery store and I can't afford groceries for my family. There is a problem. Flight cancellations over the weekend. Yeah, because people aren't showing up to work. Oh, wait. Then we have to admit COVID's back. That's a problem, too. Yeah. I've watched videos, many videos of Ukrainians, of pro Russian Ukrainians being bombarded by Ukrainian soldiers. But I will say Russia has hit hard. In one airstrike alone, they killed over 1,200 soldiers and 400 civilians. One single aircraft airstrike killed that many people yesterday. And we're not the only people here feeling this inflation record, because as the US dollar loses value, even in Turkey, inflation is hitting a record 61% today. 61% record inflation in Turkey. It's happening around the world. It's happening around the world. It's sad, but this is what's happening. People don't open their eyes soon enough, we're going to have bigger problems. Elon Musk buying to Twitter stake today was freaking awesome. If you own Twitter stock, you made a good percentage today. I think 30 something percent. Yeah, frozen chicken breast. Yeah, and that's another thing. Is this the bird flu now is in what 20 something states? We have the bird flu now, so that means chickens are being called off in 20 something states. Or of course we're not going to have as much vegetables because we're having fertilizer shortage issues. Wheat's of course going having an issue, and now we're going to have issues with meat. So wheat, vegetables, now chicken. What's next? Mad cow disease is going to hit the U.S. I could see it happening. It's sad though. We're facing this as American citizens, and nobody's talking about this. It's sad. Now we're watching Australia to switch to cryptocurrency as even stores start to take cryptocurrency there. Yeah, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better at this point. A lot worse, unfortunately. The German regulators talk about not buying Russian oil, EU not buying Russian gas. How about slap the idiot disease? We definitely need slap the idiot disease. It's just bad. When will this all end? I don't know. We have a long way for recovery. A long, long way. That. Yeah, we will survive this one way or another. We will, as a family, as strong and standing tall. I live in South Florida. To rent a house here, it's over $7,000 a month. Well over. But even Goldman Sachs expects the U.S. recession. Expects it. Not a question now. It's not when. It's going to happen. Recession. That's one of the biggest economic market or economic evaluations that we get in the United States. It's from these funds. It's that. As we face what's going on out there, rent a room for $12.50 a month. Yeah, I can rent out my. I was talking about that the other day. Yeah, mad cow, hemorrhagic fever. What's next? What is next? That is the question. What is next? Because it's going to happen. I mean, they're talking about building more wind turbines. You know, wind turbines cost a lot of money to produce, and in 20 years they got to be replaced. So have 90% of the time they're left there, and they just build new ones somewhere else. Not only that, the amount of oil they use to keep them cool, to keep them lubricated, it's just ridiculous. Just sad. And the world's running out of options to meet their climate goals if they want to do that. The U.S., of course, suspended Russia from the UN Humanitarian Rights Council. Oh, it's just a joke. It's literally a joke because we call every country for everything they do, whether they invade another country, whether they attack other people, whether citizens get killed. We all get called. We all call it as Americans. But yet, when America goes into a country and kills 300,000 plus civilians, nobody bats an eye. When America goes into a country and slaughters people without question, nobody bats an eye. Nobody calls foul. Now, I stand for America, but I do not stand for the way we act towards other countries. Especially not when you go through and read everything that's happened from the beginning to the end. It is sad. Yeah, it's called, we call it nation building. Russia's just nation building. Why do we have a problem with what Russia's doing? They're just nation building right now. People on fixed incomes are screwed. Definitely are. I feel bad for everybody out there. Yeah. That's another thing. Zelensky has wanted to make a deal with Russia and to meet Russia's simple demands that they've demanded since the beginning. No missiles, no NATO. That's not huge demands. I mean, that's very simple. God bless you guys, and thank you guys for being with us. We definitely appreciate it. I'm going to be back tomorrow night and get more into this. There's so much happening at once. Russia, of course, is going to be hammering Ukraine. I wouldn't be surprised if NATO gets involved soon. Unfortunately, nobody wants to hear that, but just another thing the U.S. wants to push. You guys can afford to donate, please do. We definitely need donations. We definitely need donations. But God bless you guys. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 9:30 or around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. We got to pray for America. We got to pray for our America. All I can say is God bless everyone. God bless America. Have a great night. Be safe. Try to be try to be nice to somebody in need. Just be there for them. Good night.